go on to, we're going to do some comparisons today, and this is when I sent these balls out to the tour. I sent out cells, and I asked the guys, give me your favorite layouts, and we're going to put your favorite layout in an Epic Odyssey versus a cell. Now, Epic Odyssey's been out about a year. It was the strongest asymmetrical ball produced by Roto Grip. It was a high, and it still is, a high performance, low RG, about roughly a little bit lower than the cell, about the same amount of differential, just a little bit less differential, but a bigger asymmetric split and a totally different shape. And the tendency a lot of times that people said always about the Odyssey was it was a little bit, sometimes too much at the break point and sometimes not enough. It was a very aggressive bowling ball, but sometimes its move, or that we talk about that hook spot in the lane, was sometimes a little bit, if we gassed it a little bit too far. And what I was trying to show was the benefits between the cell and the Odyssey, and how the cell smoothed out the transitions, and the Odyssey was really hard off the transitions, because that's what an asymmetrics usually are, is harder on the transitions, more definitive break points. So we use the player's favorite layouts on an AMF HPL surface, which is a good synthetic surface. This was a 39-foot house pattern. I don't have the actual milliliters in the pattern, but it was a standard lengthwise taper and a crosswise taper. And for our lane man in the back, it was done with an HVO machine, I believe, because it was in an AMF center. So we'll go to the next slide. Now the first ones we're going to talk about are Brian LeClair. Now Brian LeClair is probably the thing that's most famous about Brian LeClair. He's been on a tour quite a few years. He holds the distinct title of making the most money ever as a professional bowler without winning a title. Brian LeClair is a phenomenal bowler, very, very good bowler. But sometimes he struggles a little bit in the, and has some rough breaks here and there. So his favorite layouts, if we look, it's a 5-inch to the pin to the positive axis point with a mass bias that's roughly about 5 inches as well. And a pin buffer, those of you who understand the pin buffer distances, in the Storm's PSA drilling charts and now Roto Grip's asymmetrical drilling charts, the pin buffer is, if we draw the vertical axis line, it's 4 inches from that vertical axis line, okay? So 4.5 inches from the vertical axis line. Now LeClair likes this layout because it gives him a little bit more control. It gives him something that a lot of times on the PBA patterns, they don't like to see the super skid flip reactions to begin with. But even then, sometimes you're still going to get it because of the nature of the ball, period. So these are the two layouts we use. So if we'll go to the next slide. Now the first one we're going to show is we're going to show the cell in slow motion. And I want you to stop it right when it comes up on the screen. Right here. If you notice the yellow dot, and many of you might not be able to see it, or you can. That's actually his CG that's come up on axis roughly about 40, 45 feet down the lane. Okay? So if you refer back to the original slide, and you don't have to, it's migrated about 4.5 inches. From its initial axis point, it's migrated 4.5 inches. Now this still has some, we're going to let it go all the way into the pins and stop it right into the pin deck. It's continued past it. So it's continued, and it's continued to migrate through the lane. Even at this drilling, we see that it continues to change direction. It continues to maintain its differential. It continues to hook. The neat thing about the cell is a couple of things, and the fact is, like I said, it's a continuous hook through the lane. It's continuous migration of axis, and it's a very uniform migration of axis. So you notice the flare pattern stays very uniform.
Inside your packets, too, you'll notice there's two of these discs. And one of them is the PowerPoint presentation, which is what we're showing you here. And then we also have the DVD as well that also has a compilation of these shots. So it'll be easier to pause it and just move it forward and backwards just the slightest amounts with your DVD. So there is the backup information you have here, because like I say, as far as actually in the PowerPoint controlling specifically where it's at, and it's a lot easier to see when you're right in front too of your own computer or your own TV screen.
Absolutely. Thanks, Steve. And these DVDs are nice to have in the pro shops too. You guys have your TV, and some of you do, some of you don't. But I'd recommend that you put a TV in with a DVD player, and these will loop for you, and it just gives you something for your. $29.95. Yeah.
Be money well spent.
Yeah. Give you something for your customers to occupy their time. And some of you do have some customers that hang out quite a bit in your pro shops. I know I did for sure in my pro shops. But my famous tape in my pro shops was Cybervision. Does anybody remember Cybervision? It was Marshall Holman and Johnny Petraglia. I used to loop that tape, and they would just be mesmerized by watching the ball go down the lane. Now the nice thing here is you notice, if we just watch it, you can see it how the CG comes up on axis, and then it just continues to migrate past it. And the other thing too is we keep noticing about this bowling ball, based on friction of the cover and the core, there's a lot less deflection of this ball, a lot more roll through the deck. We saw that a lot. At one point in the testing, LeClair had like 30 in a row from playing a couple different angles. As the shot was breaking down, he still kept striking, even on the light pocket hits or the solid pocket hits. So let's go to the next one. We're going to show you Odyssey. Now the distinct thing I want you to notice in the Odyssey is, we'll let it just go all the way through. It hits its PSA about 3 feet before the pins. You'll stop it just short of the pins. About right there. It's actually spun around, and then you'll watch it go on a straight path into the pocket. It's not as continuous because it's a stronger asymmetrical ball, so it does have a more definitive, defined break point. It's harder to see it sometimes from this angle, but you can see it that it hits that PSA and then it just rolls through the deck. Now, on a flush pocket hit, you're going to get, I guess, what is it, 2.5 inch offset, 5 degrees of entry angle. It's going to strike 100% of the time. 100%. The USBC's never found a shot at 2.5 inch offset and with that entry angle that it has not struck. But twister pins, maybe you might get true, or magnesium pins. Hey, if you want to get some of those back out. But the off pocket hits, the 5 degrees, the 2 7/8 or 3 inch offsets, those are the hits that we see a lot of loss sometimes out of balls that don't have a little bit more motion through the decks. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. Now this is the view I always love to use with balls, but we didn't have a good shot of the Odyssey in this view. Just watch the continuous motion of this ball as it's traveling down the lane. You can see it migrate around its axis and just continue to go. And this is playing from a little farther left. Just continuous hook. Not anything drastic or sharp, but just continuous motion in the lane. That's what we're trying to give you. Because we all know the average player, a lot of people in this room are very good bowlers, very accomplished bowlers. We have some that made some TV shows, and we have some, we have some Team USA members here, some all events champions here, some very, very good bowlers. But we all know you guys are pretty accurate, right? You hit this much, right? You hit that, okay? So your ball doesn't react very different, right? But the average bowler that we find out, the 180 average bowler, keeps it in an area that's about 5 inches wide. 5 inches. Now we know if a pattern cuts off halfway between those 5 inches, he's in 2 distinctive zones in the lane. So what we want to do here is what my whole philosophy was. I want to give him a ball that if I got it in the oil, it was still going to roll and read. If I hit the dry, it's still going to hook off the dry, but it's controllable at both spots. It's not the over and under that we see a lot of times, sometimes out of other products. Okay, if we'll go to the next one. Now this is LeClair, like I said, there's no scripting here, there's no telling him what to say. They just got raw feedback.
Yeah, we just went right there. Louis, who is our multimedia guy, he just had his video camera. He just grabbed him real quick on the approach, said, all right, come here, tell me what you think. Put his camera on him. So
that's, he said, both